Red and blue police lights flashed violently across the quiet buildings of Main Street in Berlin, New Hampshire, late that winter night. At exactly 10:30 p.m., multiple patrol cars stopped outside a modest 3-story residential building after an urgent emergency call. Officers stepped out cautiously, their boots crunching against frozen pavement while the cold February wind moved silently through the street. Nothing seemed unusual from the outside, yet the tension among officers suggested something inside that building was terribly wrong. Moments later, 2 officers approached the ground floor apartment door, exchanging silent glances before slowly pushing the unlocked door open. What they discovered inside that quiet living room would soon trigger one of the most disturbing criminal investigations the town had seen. Inside the apartment, the air felt heavy and strangely quiet. On a couch in the living room lay 31-year-old Caitlyn Napsiger. She was completely motionless. Officers immediately checked for signs of life, but there were none. A visible injury near her head told investigators that this was not a natural death. Later, the medical examiner confirmed the cause: a single gunshot wound to the head. What made the situation even more unsettling was the condition of the apartment. There were no signs of forced entry. The door had not been broken. Furniture was not overturned. Nothing suggested a violent struggle had taken place. Even more disturbing, the firearm used in the shooting was nowhere to be found. But the mystery deepened almost immediately. Investigators soon learned that Caitlyn did not actually live in that apartment. The unit had been rented by 37-year-old Dustin Duren, the father of her 2 young daughters. And Dustin Duren was missing. So were the children. 4-year-old Eloise and 1-year-old Waylon were nowhere inside the building. Within minutes, the scene changed from a homicide investigation to something far more urgent. Authorities feared a possible abduction involving 2 small children. Police quickly began searching the building, but Dustin Duren was not there. The girls were not there either. Command staff immediately established an emergency command post outside the apartment building. Detectives and forensic teams began documenting every detail of the crime scene while officers started searching nearby streets. By early morning on March 1, 2024, law enforcement across New Hampshire activated the Amber Alert system. Residents throughout the region received emergency notifications on their phones. The alert described a white Subaru vehicle believed to be driven by Dustin Duren. Inside the car were believed to be the 2 missing daughters. Police suspected that Duren had already left Berlin during the night and was traveling south toward larger cities. Highway patrol units across New England began monitoring major roads and interstate routes. 4 hours. There were no confirmed sightings. Then, around 11 a.m., a breakthrough happened. 2 witnesses, a mother and her daughter, were driving through the city of Keene, New Hampshire, when they noticed something unusual. The vehicle in front of them looked exactly like the one described in the Amber Alert. A white Subaru. Instead of approaching the vehicle, the 2 women did something incredibly important. They began quietly following the car from a safe distance, while speaking with a police dispatcher on the phone. They provided real-time updates about the car's direction and location. Finally, the Subaru turned into the parking lot of a chain restaurant, Applebee's. The car stopped. Within minutes, 5 local police units and a New Hampshire State Police patrol vehicle surrounded the area. Officers exited their vehicles with weapons drawn. The driver remained inside. Police shouted commands. "Show us your hands!" Slowly, the man inside the Subaru raised his hands into the air. It was Dustin Duren. He did not attempt to flee. He did not resist arrest. According to police reports, Duren calmly told officers something chilling. His daughters were inside the car. Officers carefully opened the back door of the vehicle. Inside were the 2 girls, 4-year-old Eloise and 1-year-old Waylon. Miraculously, neither child appeared physically injured. Medical responders quickly examined them at the scene. While the girls were taken to safety, Dustin Duren was placed in handcuffs and transported to a nearby police station for questioning. But investigators were just beginning to uncover what had really happened. Forensic teams soon began searching the Subaru in the Applebee's parking lot. Inside the driver's door pocket, officers discovered a Beretta semi-automatic pistol. The gun was loaded. The safety was engaged, but there was no round in the chamber. Ballistics testing would later confirm something crucial. This was the same gun used to kill Caitlyn Napsiger. As investigators continued searching the vehicle, they noticed something strange. The car looked as if it had been prepared for a long journey. There were multiple sets of spare clothing for both Duren and his daughters. Blankets and pillows were stacked across the back seats. Bottled water and dry snacks filled a bag in the trunk. It appeared the family could have stayed on the road for several days. Then investigators discovered something even more unusual. In the cargo area of the vehicle was a full-size desktop computer tower. This was not a typical item someone grabs during a sudden escape. It suggested planning. A review of Dustin Duren's phone activity revealed another suspicious detail. His cell phone had been deliberately turned off shortly after the shooting occurred. That single action allowed him to avoid location tracking systems for nearly 12 hours. Investigators began building a profile of the suspect. Dustin Duren had once served in the United States Marine Corps. After joining at age 18, he spent several years stationed overseas, including deployments in Thailand, South Korea, and the Philippines. He had also participated in combat operations in Iraq and Kuwait. During his military service, Duren specialized in firearms training. He became highly skilled with handguns and eventually worked as an instructor, teaching new recruits how to handle weapons safely. By his own estimate, he had fired tens of thousands of rounds during his career. But after leaving the military, his life began to unravel. Doctors later diagnosed him with post-traumatic stress disorder and depression. Because of these conditions, Duren received government disability benefits and struggled to maintain steady employment. Despite his difficulties, Duren built a completely different identity online. For 7 years, he ran a small YouTube channel under the name V. Duren. On the channel, he streamed gameplay from popular titles like Fallout, New Vegas, and Sea of Thieves. To his online viewers, he appeared cheerful and relaxed, often talking proudly about his daughters and family life. But behind the scenes, his relationship with Caitlyn Napsiger had become increasingly unstable. Arguments about money, parenting responsibilities, and living arrangements slowly pushed the couple into constant conflict. By early 2024, the tension had reached a breaking point. On the night of February 29th, inside the small Berlin apartment, the argument escalated into something far more dangerous. According to Duren's later testimony, Caitlyn refused to leave the apartment and insisted she would not go anywhere without her daughters. The situation grew heated. At some point during the confrontation, Duren claimed Caitlyn held their daughter tightly while sitting on the couch. Then, in a moment he later described as a combat response, he grabbed his pistol. A single gunshot echoed through the apartment. Caitlyn Napsiger collapsed on the couch. She died instantly, but the story Dustin Duren told investigators would soon begin to fall apart. Forensic analysis revealed that the gun had been fired from at least 3 feet away, not during a close struggle as he claimed. Investigators concluded something chilling. By the time the shot was fired, the child had already been separated from her mother. In October 2025, the case finally went to trial. Prosecutors argued that Duren had not acted but out of anger after Caitlyn refused to leave the apartment. After hearing all the evidence, the jury needed only a few hours to decide. Dustin Duren was found guilty on all counts, including second-degree homicide and endangering the welfare of his daughters. The man who once trained soldiers in the use of firearms had ultimately used those same skills against the mother of his own children. The sentencing hearing was scheduled for December 11th, 2025. Meanwhile, the 2 daughters were placed in the care of relatives in Minnesota and in the small city of Berlin, New Hampshire. The apartment on Main Street remained a reminder of the night when a family tragedy turned into a criminal case that shocked an entire community.